The Last Ticket Stub. In the autumn of 1987, the old Bijou Theater on Maple Street in Derry showed its final film. The marquee still read, "Gone with the Wind," in cracked plastic letters, even though the last reel had spun out weeks earlier. After that, the place sat dark and silent, the way abandoned theaters do, gathering dust and memories like cobwebs. Then, one rainy Thursday in November, the ticket booth light flickered on. Nobody knew who turned it on. The power had been cut months ago, but there it was, a single bare bulb glowing behind the scratched glass, and beneath it, a man in a faded red usher's jacket. His name tag read simply, Mr. Finch. He smiled the patient smile of someone who has waited a very long time. He sold tickets, $1 each, cash only. People started coming, at first out of curiosity, kids on bikes mostly, daring each other, then adults who remembered the place from their own childhoods. They bought tickets without asking what was playing. Mr. Finch never told them. He just tore the stub from a long yellow roll that never seemed to run out, handed it over, and said the same thing every time. Enjoy the show, and remember your seat number. Inside, the theater was exactly as it had been in '87. Red velvet seats worn thin at the edges, the faint smell of popcorn and mildew, the heavy curtain still hanging in front of the screen. No one ever saw anyone else in the audience. You sat alone, always alone. The lights dimmed without warning, the curtain parted, and the movie began. It was never the same film twice, but it was always your movie. For Mrs. Eleanor Hayes, who bought a ticket on a whim one Tuesday afternoon, the screen showed grainy home movie footage of her wedding day in 1962. Except this time, when she walked down the aisle, her veil lifted on its own. Underneath was not her face, but the face of the girl she had been before the marriage, before the children, before the slow erosion of dreams. The girl looked straight into the camera and whispered, "You promised me more than this." Eleanor left before the credits. She never came back. For Tommy Rourke, 16 and angry at the world, the film was a shaky camcorder recording of the night he and his friends broke into the old mill on the edge of town. Only in this version, when they laughed and threw rocks at the windows, one of the shadows moved. It moved like a person who had been waiting inside the mill for decades. When the shadow stepped into the light, it wore Tommy's face, older, hollow-eyed, the way he would look at 40 if he lived that long. The older Tommy raised a finger to his lips. Shh. Tommy Rourke stopped sleeping with the lights off after that. He also stopped breaking things. Mr. Finch never asked questions. He just sold the next ticket. One night in December, a man named Harold Voss came in. Harold had not been to the Bijou since he was 12. That was the year his little sister disappeared during intermission of The Wizard of Oz. She had gone to the bathroom and never come back. They searched the theater for hours. Nothing. The police said she must have wandered outside. Harold knew better. He had heard the soft click of the side exit door closing just as the tornado scene started. He bought a ticket from Mr. Finch with shaking hands. "Seat G14, Mr. Finch said, tearing the stub. "Center aisle, best view in the house." Harold sat down. The lights went out. The screen flickered to life. It was black and white surveillance footage, grainy, silent. The camera angle was high, looking down on the Bijou lobby from somewhere near the ceiling. There was a little girl in a yellow dress standing by the ladies' room door. She looked confused. Then she turned, as though someone had called her name. She walked toward the side exit. The door opened by itself. She stepped through. The camera followed. Outside, it was still 1962. The streetlights were the old mercury vapor kind. A man in a long coat waited on the sidewalk. He held out his hand. The girl took it. They walked away together. The man never looked back at the camera, but the girl did. She looked straight up into the lens, straight at Harold, 40 years later. Her mouth moved. No sound, but he knew the words. "You didn't look for me." The screen went black. Harold sat in the dark for a long time. When the house lights finally came up, the theater was empty. No Mr. Finch, no ticket roll. The booth light was off. He walked outside into the snow. The marquee was dark. The doors were locked from the inside. He still had the ticket stub in his pocket. It was dated tonight, December 17th, 2025. Seat G14, $1. He kept it. Some nights, when the wind rattles the windows, he takes it out and stares at the faded yellow paper. The ink is still fresh. He knows the next showing is coming. He knows he'll buy another ticket, because in Derry, some films never really end. They just wait for you to take your seat.
Chapter 2. The Projectionist's Cut. The Bijou never advertised its showtimes, but the light in the ticket booth always came on at dusk, like clockwork. By the middle of January 2026, people in Derry had started to notice the pattern. Not the ones who bought tickets, they never came back twice, but the ones who watched from across the street, from parked cars, from the shadows of the alley behind the hardware store. They saw the same thing every evening. Mr. Finch, in his red jacket, sitting motionless behind the glass, the yellow ticket roll resting on the counter like a sleeping snake. He didn't read, he didn't check his watch, he simply waited. And people came. On the evening of January 14th, a woman named Clara Mendoza pushed open the heavy glass door. She was 38, a night shift nurse at Derry General, the kind of person who had learned to keep her face calm even when the monitors flatlined. She hadn't been inside the Bijou since she was a teenager, when she used to sneak in with her older brother to watch R-rated movies they weren't supposed to see. She bought a ticket without a word. Mr. Finch tore the stub. "Seat D7, he said. "Third row, left side. Enjoy the show, Clara." She froze for half a second. He had never used her name before, but she told herself it was a lucky guess. Small town. People talk. She walked down the aisle alone. The theater smelled the same as it had 30 years ago. Stale popcorn, old velvet, and something faintly metallic, like pennies left in a coat pocket too long. She sat in D7. The seat was warm, as though someone had just left it. The lights dropped. The curtain parted with a slow, mechanical sigh. The screen flickered white, then resolved into color. It was home video footage, slightly shaky, the kind shot on an old camcorder with a bad white balance. Clara recognized the living room immediately. The brown couch with the burn mark from her brother's cigarette, the framed photo of their parents on the mantel, the Christmas tree still up in March because no one had bothered to take it down that year. On the screen, she saw herself at 16, sitting cross-legged on the floor, laughing at something off camera. Her brother Marco, 18, and already too handsome for his own good, leaned over the back of the couch holding the camcorder. He was teasing her about her new boyfriend, the one who drove a beat-up Mustang and smelled like motor oil. The footage kept rolling, but now the angle changed. The camera was no longer in Marco's hands. It was higher up, near the ceiling, looking down like a security camera no one had ever installed. Clara watched herself on screen stand up. She walked toward the kitchen. Marco followed, still laughing, still filming. They disappeared through the doorway. Then the screaming started. Not loud, not dramatic, just the small, choked sound of someone who has realized something terrible too late. On screen, the kitchen light flickered. There was a thump, a crash of glass, and then silence. Clara sat rigid in D7. Her hands were clenched in her lap so tightly the nails left crescents in her palms. The footage continued. Now the camera drifted, slowly, deliberately through the kitchen doorway. It panned across the tile floor. There was a broken bottle of Coke, a smear of something dark, and there, half hidden behind the table leg, was Marco's hand, still holding the camcorder, still recording. The lens tilted up. Clara's 16-year-old self stood in the middle of the kitchen, staring straight into the camera, blood on her cheek, eyes wide and empty. She lifted one finger to her lips. Shh. Then she smiled. Not the smile Clara remembered from that night. This smile was slow, patient, the smile of someone who has waited 22 years for an audience. The screen went black. Clara didn't move for a long time. When the house lights finally came up, the theater was empty. No sound except the low hum of the projector cooling down somewhere above her head. She stood. Her legs felt like wood. In the lobby, Mr. Finch was gone. The ticket booth light was off. The doors were unlocked now, letting in the cold January air. Clara stepped outside. Snow had started falling again, fat flakes that caught in her hair. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out the ticket stub. Seat D7, $1. Date, January 14th, 2026. But the paper felt wrong, too crisp, too new. When she turned it over, there was writing on the back in faint pencil, the handwriting small and careful. Second showing, same seat, bring your brother. Clara stared at the words until the snow blurred them. She had not seen Marco since that night in March 2003. No one had. He had walked out of the house after the argument, after the broken bottle, after the things that happened in the kitchen. He had never come home. The police looked for 3 weeks, then they stopped looking. Clara had told everyone he ran away. She had told herself the same thing for 22 years. She folded the stub and put it back in her pocket. The snow kept falling. Somewhere behind her, in the dark theater, the projector clicked once, softly, as though rewinding to the beginning. She knew she would be back, because some movies don't let you leave until the credits roll. And in the Bijou, the credits never roll.